In this video, we're going to be breaking down a live cold call and teaching you what you can do to improve your own cold calling. Let's dive right in. This is our SDR Benz, and he makes cold calls all day, every day, and he doesn't stop until his fingers bleed. Isn't that right, Benz?
That's right. My vocal cords start scratching.
And
it's a good day.
And I start laughing. All right, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to break down some of your calls. You got a couple of rejections today, so we'll play you some of those because they're always fun. And then we're going to break down a cold call that Ben's had earlier today.
Hello?
Hey, Kevin. This is Michael with Boris. How you doing today?
With who?
With Boris. I know I'm calling out of the blue.
Yeah, sorry, you lose my number.
Hey, James. This is Michael with Boris. How you doing today?
Who is it?
This is Michael with Boris. I know I'm calling out of the blue. Do you have 30 seconds for me to explain why I'm calling?
No, you don't need to explain anything. Go to hell.
All right, so let's take a listen to your call here and see what we hear.
Hello, this is Tom.
Hey, Tom. This is Michael with Boris. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Michael with who?
With Boris. I know I'm calling you out of the blue here. Do you have 30 seconds for me to explain why I'm calling you?
All right, first thing I want to call out here is you sound really good. You sound super confident. You know what you're talking about, which is great. And also, and I want to call this out for the people watching, when somebody asks you a question, they're taking control of the call, right? They're saying, hey, I'm in the driver's seat now. Calling from where? And it's very tempting just to answer the question and not continue talking. And what Benz does really good here is he actually continues talking. He asks for permission. That's not permission-based intro. And if you're not familiar with the intros that we typically promote, we'll link somewhere either in the description or on the video how to construct your cold call intro. But this is really off to a good start.
About 30 seconds. I'm just in the middle of lunch and need to get some things done.
Sounds good. So we actually talked about 2 months ago, but at a high level, we help early-stage companies build, scale, and optimize their outbound sales efforts. We typically work with companies that are either starting to build an inside sales team or their current team isn't producing the results they're looking for. When we first talked, you said this wouldn't be relevant now, maybe sometime in the future. Just curious where you stand, if either of these are resonating with you a little more now.
Yeah, no, we're in good shape right now. Got a lot of things on the table, so I don't think it's appropriate at this point.
Sounds good. Do you think it'll become more relevant in the future? Your plans with an inside sales team, you mind divulging a little there?
Yeah, I mean, likely we'll add some people on our team, but we're probably not going to outsource the hiring of that or doing of that.
Yep.
So, yeah. I mean,
well, we do.
All right, I want to pause here because I think this is really reflective of what happens on a cold calls pretty often, but I want you to jump in first. Listening to that back, anything you would do different?
Yeah, I kind of had a flashback to being in the moment of that call. And I remember since he said he had 30 seconds, I wanted to get out the value prop faster. And in doing so, I think it kind of messed up what I was doing. Like, I think I just blew through that a little fast. I also had the same feedback for myself on the permission-based opener. Same thing. I felt like once I get to the script and I start reading, I just went a little too fast.
Yeah, so definitely an argument that you're rushing a bit here. So I think that's a good observation. I want to dive a little bit into the actual question that you asked. So one of the good things that you did here was you asked a question that got him talking more. It was a little bit rocky to get there. Like, I don't think your question was really well structured, but it got him talking. And then you learned that he actually misunderstands what we do. Right? He thinks we're outsourcing sales, which we don't do. We help people build these teams internally. So you ended up getting a really positive response to that because it's going to allow you to continue the conversation here. But one thing you could think about for next time is asking the question in a little bit of a clearer way. So as opposed to saying like, oh, you mentioned, he's building, you said you might want to add some people at some point. You mind divulging a little bit there? Like, cut that down. You can just say like, hey, you mentioned that you wanted to hire a couple people. Tell me more about that. So it doesn't come across as awkward. It's a minor detail, but something I think worth calling out. You also could ask a specific question about what some of his focuses are. So he said he has got a couple things on his plate right now. One of the things you could ask him is, what are some of the things that are taking priority? or any of the things on your plate right now sales related, which is a yes or no question, which we don't normally do, but in that case, I think it's good. Those are just some options. Obviously, these calls can go in 1,000 different ways, but these are just some other options to see if it opens up the conversation more. Either way, in this case, it actually worked. Your question worked, so it's not this call specific, just best practices in general, and I want people watching to know that. So let's keep listening and see where this goes from here.
Oh, thank you. We do have a model which it's our sales team growth model. So if you have a revenue target that you want to see your sales org hit, and then like we can use like either your current amount of reps, or if you want to hire reps, we can figure out how many reps you need to hire, what their activities should be to hit that target. Is that something that would interest you?
What did you think of the question here?
So this was a Hail Mary.
Right.
This was a full-on like last-ditch attempt. This is one of our 2 models that we typically look at in our first demos. For those of you that haven't gone through our sales process that might be watching this, we typically work with companies that are building up their first team. So we have the sales team growth model. Then we have our sales team health model. So for him, knowing that he's hiring some reps, I decided just to throw the sales team growth model at him and see if it'd be something he's interested in.
Here's the question then. This is super important. What could you have asked him without talking about us and what we do? What could you have asked him to keep the conversation going? He did something, he told you something really interesting here. Do you have any idea what it is? Those of you at home might not either. So what he said was that he's planning on hiring a couple of sales reps. And what that is a classic on-call alarm. And I think we even have a video on this, but I talk about this a lot, which is action equals why. So if you plan to take action, if you're taking action, if you are planning, or if you took action in the past, you want to understand what's motivating that action. Why are you taking that action? And here's the thing. This guy doesn't realize what we do. He thinks we're an outsourced provider, and we haven't defused that concern yet. So what I would do in this case here is it would be very, very simple structure. You want to defuse the concern, and then ask a really specific question that'll open up the conversation. So this is what it might sound like. He told us, what did he say in the call? He said, we're going to be hiring some sales reps, and I'm not looking to outsource that. Okay, great. Well, we actually don't promote outsourcing your SDR or AE function at all. You mentioned that you're hiring some sales reps or adding sales reps to the team. Curious, what's motivating you to do that? Simple. And the reason why that question is so powerful is their response is typically the problem that they're trying to solve, right? Oh, we're doing that because we need to increase our revenue. We're doing that because we had some turnover in the sales team. We're doing that because, our board is on our case about increasing our revenue targets or growing quicker. Those are typically the problems that they're going to be having. And by asking that question, understanding the motivator behind it, what you're going to see is going to open up conversations a lot more. So let's dive back into this call and see how it ends.
No, I'm pretty good at math. So, so yeah, I mean, that part of it's pretty straightforward. But, I think you sent me, if I'm not mistaken, you may have sent me an email with some info.
You're spot on.
Yeah. So, down the road, always, as I think I probably told you, always feel free to call me. I usually answer my phone. Emails probably better in this case, just so I can take a look. I'm pretty good about responding without deleting. Just remind me that we've talked, and I'll more generous with not deleting it. But yeah, feel free to check in 6 months, 8 months, and see where we are.
Yeah, sounds good. You'll be on my own little private newsletter here.
There you go.
Constant email. All right.
I love it. So it ends pretty positive. Like he says, send me an email. We didn't get the meeting. Like that's ultimately what we're going for. But this is a positive touch point. This guy's going to remember you. And you were respectful last time, right? You didn't call him after he said not interested a week later. And he obviously has enough rapport with you where he's willing to give you directions on the best way to get a hold of him. All that we have to do here is correct his understanding of our offer. So this is a great example of sending a video. So what you might consider is shooting a video here and saying like, hey, thanks so much for your time today. And in the beginning, I would even make the subject line, you told me to tell you we talked. You know, something that he actually told you. And in the video say like, hey, I think maybe it's a little unclear what we do at Voris. You said that you're hiring sales reps. This is exactly what we do. We help organizations build these sales team internally because we find that when you outsource it, it doesn't typically go as well as you would like it to, et cetera, et cetera. We could talk about the scripting there. But what I want people to understand, and I think the main piece of feedback I have of this call, the strengths you have is you are always in control of the call. You do a really good job asking a question every single time you speak. And that's something I want people watching to understand. It's very, very tempting to just drop it and let the prospect start asking you questions. That gets you in trouble. So you do an incredible job keeping control of the conversation. You also sound really good. You have a good sense of humor. You build rapport. You just listening to you sound like somebody you'd want to hang out with. And that's helpful, you know, because look, as much as we try to take the individual out of it, all things being equal, you buy from who you like. So being a likable, warm, friendly person is going to be helpful. The main piece of feedback I have is listen for those action moments where they say they took action, are taking action, or plan to take an action, and just understand what's motivating the action there. With a little bit of active listening, I think is going to have a big improvement.
Absolutely.
All right, Benz, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if he was saying the outsourcing was for recruitment. If he was saying we weren't going to outsource recruitment hiring, I just kind of glossed over that. But you're right, like that is the thing I should have honed in on there, and then action equals Y. I think that's easily my biggest takeaway. In the Nest coaching session last week, you were harping on this heavy, saying that anytime we listened to a couple of call recordings there. Anytime any of the prospects on those were, we did this, we don't want this, we're looking to do this, and they didn't ask why, you were like, you need to ask why. So I think just doubling down on getting to the bottom of their problem.
Exactly. Exactly. And what he's referring to here, which I think is important to acknowledge quickly, is the only thing that matters when you're cold calling is the problem you solve. Your product is irrelevant. It doesn't mean anything. No one cares about what the product is. They care about what it can do for them. And if you have that approach in every cold call, you're going to have a lot more success because you understand the problems of the people you're talking to, and there's no replacement for that. If you want to watch another video on cold calling, we got a great one right here.